Hey guys, I'm Angelo, producer of They Will Kill You, and I hope you enjoyed today's special episode done in collaboration with my friend Paul from Pablito's Way on plane crashes that killed entire sports teams.
Thanks, Angelo. What's up, guys? I'm Paul from Pablito's Way, just like Angelo said. Do you guys know which celebrities completely transformed their bodies for a movie role? Stay tuned to find out. Number 9, the Wichita State University football team, 1970. In October 1970, 2 chartered planes in Wichita were loaded with the Wichita State University football team. Both aircrafts are bound for Logan, Utah, for the team's game against Utah State University. The plane, which carried the team's reserve players, assistant coaches, and other support staff, landed at its destination safely as it stuck to its original flight plan. The other plane, however, which carried the team's main players, head coaches, and administrators, met a horrible end. The weather that day was calm and clear, and the pilot had intended to provide his passengers with the beautiful scenic views of the canyons along the way. So he flew rather low, but miscalculated and ended up trapping the flying plane inside a box canyon surrounded by mountain ridges and was unable to perform a reversal turn. It was already too late when the pilot realized this. As they headed up Clear Creek Valley, the heavy overloaded machine hit the side of a mountain hard as it failed to lift itself up fast enough to escape the canyon. Out of the 40 passengers, 29 died at the scene, while 2 others died later from their heavy injuries. Wichita State lost most of its starting lineup that day. Number 8, Hendrick Motorsports, 2004. Fiery crashes are something quite common in car racing. However, the Hendrick team found themselves facing their worst vehicle accident ever outside of the circuit and high up in the air in October 2004. The horrific event not only rocked the Hendrick family, but all of NASCAR. It was supposed to be a short flight carrying 8 Hendrick Motorsports team members from Concord, North Carolina, to attend a race in Martinsville, Virginia. Among the passengers were the team's captain, John Hendrick, and his 2 daughters, Ricky Hendrick, who was heir apparent to the team founded by his father Rick, their general manager and chief engine builder. They all never made it. It was a rainy and foggy day. Due to poor visibility, the plane missed its first attempt to land at the Blue Ridge Airport. The pilot then circled back for another landing attempt, but unfortunately, he crashed the plane into Bull Mountain during that attempt, instantly killing everyone on board. Jimmy Johnson, the Hendrick team's driver, was competing at the Marysville Speedway at the time. He won the race, and news of the tragedy broke out just shortly after he crossed the finish line. Out of respect, no victory lane celebrations were held. Number 7, the Cuban national fencing team, 1976. What's horrible about this tragedy is that, unlike the others mentioned here, this plane crash was no accident, but the result of a deliberate terrorist attack. Cubana de Aviación Flight 455 was a Cuban airliner bound to Jamaica from Barbados on October 6, 1976. Among its 68 passengers were 24 members of Cuba's national fencing team that had just swept all the gold medals in the Central American and Caribbean championships. Many of them were still in their teens. Shortly after taking off, 2 timed bombs on the plane went off. One of them destroyed the plane's cable controls while the other tore a large hole in the aircraft and started a fire. In the middle of the panic, the pilots attempted an emergency landing on the waters below but failed due to its extremely rapid descent. There were no survivors. Orlando Bashavila, a Cuban exile and former CIA-backed operative who headed an anti-Castro terrorist organization, was implicated for the attack. Declassified documents have shown that the CIA and FBI were somehow already aware of the attack. Number 6, the members of Manchester United Football Club, 1958. Today, Manchester United is arguably the most well-known soccer club on the planet. With 20 Premier League titles to their name, they are the most successful club in English history, as well as one of the most successful on the world stage. But in February 1958, their team was almost wiped out completely in a horrific plane crash. The team was returning home to England from a European Cup match against Red Star Belgrade in Yugoslavia. The Airspeed Ambassador aircraft they flew in made a stop in Munich, Germany in order to refuel. But after refueling, problems started to appear when boost charging in the left engine caused the pilots to abandon takeoff twice. By then, the falling snow had formed a layer of slush at the end of the runway. Not wanting to fall behind schedule, the pilots attempted a third takeoff. The plane lost control due to the slush, crashing through the runway's fence and into a house beyond it. Out of 38 passengers, 23 died, 8 of them Manchester United team members. What's more heartbreaking is that those 8 were part of the Busby Babes, the brilliant generation of young players that had won their club the league championship twice during the previous 2 years. The team was extremely close to the hearts of the fans, as they were developed by the club from the ground up, products from Manchester United's youth team. They were all still young at the time of the tragedy, with ages averaging in their early 20s. The Queen herself offered her public condolences. Number 5. ALIANZA Lima Peru Soccer Team, 1987. In December 1987, ALIANZA Lima, Peru's most famous and best supported club in the country, were returning home from a Peruvian league match in Pucallpa when catastrophe hit them hard. The plane's indicator on its control panel seemed to be malfunctioning, so the pilot did a flyby at the control tower of Lima's airport, just so that spotters could confirm him that the plane's landing gear was down. Upon receiving confirmation, the plane circled around to attempt its landing, but flew too low, crashing into the Pacific Ocean. Out of the 44 people on board, only the pilot survived. 29 ALIANZA Lima players perished, along with their trainers and support staff. Reports surrounding the accident were shady, and the Peruvian Navy shut itself completely from the press. It's known that following the crash, search and rescue efforts were unable to be done immediately as all rescue vehicles were out of fuel due to corrupt officials selling it on the black market. Search and rescue efforts only commenced the following morning, and by then, the only remaining survivor was the pilot. Number 4. The Zambian National Soccer Team, 1993. The 1993 Zambian national soccer team was among the best the country ever had. They showed so much potential, having destroyed Italy 4-0 at the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, and were among the favorites to win the African Cup of Nations. The team was also extremely close to securing a spot in their first World Cup. The nation had managed to assemble one of the best teams Africa had ever seen. But then tragedy struck. On their way to a World Cup qualifying match against Senegal in April 1993, the plane the team was riding crashed into the Atlantic Ocean just off the coast of Gabon. An investigation revealed that the left engine had caught fire, and the pilot then accidentally shut down the right engine as well, causing the plane to stumble down. All 30 passengers died, including the 18 Zambian national players on board. The crashed plane was actually borrowed from the Zambian Air Force, as the team was facing heavy financial strains. The vehicle had been decommissioned for years, and the quality was poorly maintained by the government. Number 3. The Lokomotiv Yaroslavl Hockey Team, 2011. September 7th, 2011 goes down as one of the worst days ever in the history of pro hockey. It was the eve of the start of a new season for the Continental Hockey League, and Russian-based Lokomotiv Yaroslavl team was on their way to their opening match set in Minsk, Belarus. But the plane they were boarding crashed following a botched takeoff from Tenoshna Airport. All passengers and crew died on impact, except for a flight engineer and Lokomotiv star player Alexander Galimov, who was found conscious, suffering burn injuries all over. Galimov died a few days later while under medical treatment. Thus, the entire Lokomotiv team was wiped out, 9 of them former NHL players. Investigations to the tragedy revealed that both the pilot and co-pilot were in fact unqualified and acquired their jobs through falsified documents. They had failed to perform what was supposed to be an easy lift, causing the plane to hit a beacon tower mast before bursting into flames and crashing into the banks of the Tenoshna River. Number 2. The Uruguayan Old Christians Club Rugby Team, 1972. This tragedy is probably one of the most famous plane crashes in history. While the impact of the plane crash killed only a quarter of its passengers, the remaining survivors had then succumbed one by one to the unforgiving forces of nature. In October 1972, a Uruguayan rugby club known as the Old Christians Club was set to play a match in Santiago, Chile. They boarded a plane which carried 45 people, which included the team's players, support staff, as well as supporters. Tragically, the plane crashed high up in the Andes Mountains, instantly killing 16 people. The remaining survivors tried hard to survive in the freezing weather while sustaining injuries from the crash. A few of them died quickly from hypothermia. More of them were then swept away in an avalanche that hit the wreckage they were sheltering in. With no signs of rescuers in sight, 2 young survivors tried trekking their way out of the mountains to get help. The 2 succeeded, and rescuers eventually arrived in December, 2 months after the crash. Freezing and starving, the survivors had by then resorted to cannibalism, eating the remains of the dead in order to stay alive. Number 1. The Marshall University Football Team, 1970. The horrible plane crash involving Marshall University Thundering Herd football team has been called the deadliest tragedy in the history of sports in America due to its high number of casualties. In November 1970, the Marshall University football team was returning home after losing to the East Carolina Pirates in Greenville, North Carolina. The weather was terrible at the time, and the pilot found it difficult to land in the middle of the rain and fog. The plane ended up dropping below the level it should have, causing it to hit the tops of trees on the hillside near the runway. This caused the plane to lose control and nosedive into the ground, erupting into a ball of flame. 71 people on the plane died that day, over half of the members of the Marshall University Thundering Herd football team. What makes it more tragic is the fact that the team rarely flew, since most of their away games were within driving distance. They originally intended to cancel the flight, but changed plans anyways, chartering the Southern Airways DC-9. The tragedy and its aftermath have been immortalized in the film, We Are Marshall. We're starting off this list with Christian Bale for the movie American Hustle. He had to gain 43 pounds for the role of a balding con man, going from 185 to 228. He said that he was eating everything from donuts to cheeseburgers to whatever he could get his hands on. Gaining 43 pounds in a few months would be so tough, because that's a ton of food, and your body probably starts saying, "What the f?" after the first 20 pounds.